you had to get a credit card to buy a suit for the interview. You were gonna make $300 a week, and then you're going straight commission.
Yep.
Which meant you had to bet on yourself with no fallback plan.
No plan.
You had to move across the country to earn the right to even do this.
Yep.
In an industry you knew nothing about and didn't train for. Today, you've welcomed us into your Napa vineyard.
Yeah.
And we're sitting in your barrel house
Yep.
for this interview.
Yeah.
Welcome to Extreme Operators. I'm Jason Eubanks. This is a podcast where we sit with some of the world's best go-to-market operators. CEOs, CROs, COOs. They have scaled some of the best high-growth companies, some of the largest turnarounds. And today, we're lucky enough to be joined by Matt Handler.
How are you? Cheers.
Cheers, Matt.
Nice to see you.
Great to have you.
Thanks.
So the format today, Matt, is intended to be conversational.
Okay.
No scripts, no pre-planned questions, simply two operators sitting around having a cocktail. If we were earlier in our career, we were at a kickoff,
Yeah.
saw a couple of the senior leaders sitting there,
Yep.
talking shop over drinks,
Yep.
pulled up a bar stool next to them,
Uh-huh.
and could be a fly on the wall for that discussion. We want to open that up today.
Okay.
Keep it natural, keep it flowing. Let's get started.
I mean, first of all, you said world class. I don't know. I don't know if I would call myself world class, but I appreciate that. So, where do we want to start?
Let's start with a little bit of framing of who you are, what you've done, and then we'll get into all the lessons learned along the way.
Okay.
So, you've had a storied career. Amongst your titles over more than 2 decades of operating, you've included many sales leader and sales titles, but also CRO, COO, president,
Yep.
CEO. You've worked at some of the largest companies in the world, HP Enterprise, NTT, and you've also scaled some of the high growth startups, some of the biggest high growth startups in SaaS. So, companies like Sumo Coralogix, and others. What I'd love to dig into is where it all started. So let's start not with all the C-level conversations.
All right.
First, with how you got into sales.
Okay. So I don't get into this very often. I will try to keep it brief. I don't know if I've ever told you this before. It was a long time ago. All right. I had gone to Boston College. I had gone on a scholarship. I thought that I was going to get into international relations. I was studying history and Russian studies. Okay. And I had done pretty well in school. And I thought in my mind that the idea of sales was, to be honest, beneath me. Yeah. Okay. So it's early days, let's call it the early 90s. Okay.
Okay.
So it's the early 90s. I had graduated university. I moved home with my parents. And, sadly, both my parents have passed away, but my mom and dad were going through a divorce after being married for a long time. Grew up in an Irish Catholic family, Irish Catholic grandma living with me. Okay. So that's the backstory. I come home and my parents are going through a divorce and my mom and my dad separate. So I'm the oldest of 3 boys. My mom comes in to me one day. Now, to be clear, Jason, this is not only pre-internet, it's the beginning of computers. There was no Macintosh yet. I had an Apple IIe.
Careful, you're going to date yourself.
I know. I recently had a birthday, so just so everybody knows.
You look great no matter what.
Thanks, I appreciate it. So I had an Apple IIe. I had a dot matrix printer, and I was advanced in my computer knowledge. Okay. My mother walks into my bedroom one day, and she said, and my parents had me very young, so we were really close in age. And she's like, Matthew, we need money in the house, and you need to go out and make some more money, because I didn't have a job. It was a recession.
How old were you?
I was 21.
Okay.
21. Okay.
Got it.
So I'm living at home. Not a lot of money in the house. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri originally, so I'd moved back from Boston to St. Louis. Okay. My mom says, Matthew, we need money for the house. You're the oldest. Go get it done. And at the time, I was just working odd jobs, whatever I could find. It was just a tough time. It was 1990 specifically, and it was just kind of a mini recession. Okay?
Got it.
So she says, hey, Matt, why don't you go find a real job? I'm like, I'm trying. I'd sent out, now let me be clear, we mailed resumes, okay? So I had mailed something like 160 resumes, honest to God.
Wow.
Okay. And I sent them all over the world. And again, I had done well in school. I had done well in athletics. So, I wrote in these cover letters, and I was a journalism major. I also went to journalism school.
Okay.
So I had sent what I thought was a decent cover letter. I said that I was coachable. Let's see what happens. Yeah. Nothing. Okay. Nothing. My mom's like, you need a job. And she walked in one morning, and she had the newspaper. And the way things worked back then was there were classified ads in the newspaper. And that's how you look for jobs. And she goes, look at all these jobs in the newspaper. And I was like, okay. And she's like, look, it's all for sales. I was like, Mom, there's no way in hell I'm going to do sales. No way. And she's like, but they're hiring. We need money. And there was a whole bunch of different sales things. Some of them were literally used cars. By the way, I've known people that have made millions upon millions of dollars going to car routes. Yeah. And then there was this one ad, and the ad said, it maybe 3 sentences, maybe. Okay. Do you want to sell computers in Los Angeles, Hewlett-Packard computers? Do you want to sell Hewlett-Packard computers in Los Angeles for Cedar Computer Center? That's it.
So a reseller.
But I didn't know what a reseller was. Who knew what a reseller was? Okay, this is before CDW, SHI, anybody.
Yeah.
Okay? So I sent in my 168th, 169th resume, whatever it was, just to make my mom happy. And I forgot about it. So a little bit of time goes by. I get a phone call on literally a landline. And someone picks up, and I'm like, hello. And they said, hey, we're such and such from Cedar Computer Center. Would you like to come in for an interview? And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't remember who you are, because it was 170 resumes or so. And they go, well, obviously you're not interested. I'm like, no. I'm very interested. I'd love to come see you. Okay.
Yep.
So they said, okay, come to this office building, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. So I know nothing about computers. Okay. I mean, literally, there wasn't much out there. Okay. B, I don't know anything about Hewlett-Packard. And I was just like, Cedar Computer Center, what's that? They didn't say reseller. No one knew what any of this was. But what I did know how to do was study, because I had been studying for so long. I went to the library, okay? And so I go to the library, and I sit down, and I start looking up, literally, I don't want to curse on the podcast. I shit you not, computers.
You can curse. It's fine.
Okay, all right, good.
Thanks. It's fucking internet.
So I look up computers, and I'm looking for trends. And, I'm going to tell you, this story is important because as ridiculously long-winded as this is going to be, it set up something that I teach as recently as, I would say, last month, about how to prospect, how to look at sales in general, how to be a pro. I've never forgotten these lessons, okay? From this original man that taught it to me. So I look up computers. I'm like, okay, what's it about? And I get whatever I could figure out. I look up Cedar Computer Center, no information. I know a cedar tree, I find out, is the tree of Lebanon, the national tree of Lebanon. Okay. I'm like, okay. And the guy, they said the name of the interview was going to be with a gentleman by the name of Jamal Khatib. Okay. So I figure Lebanese, something. So I look up that. I'm like, all right, here's kind of what's going on with Hewlett-Packard. I read as much as I could. And what was crazy, again, I'm dating myself, so I apologize.
So now
to
you're
everybody.
pre-internet, you're doing account research.
Yep.
You're doing contact research on the person that you're about to prospect into, in this case for a job, not a sale. The ultimate sale, you might say.
So I'm doing all my background, all the G2. I look up HPs. I'm sure they were public back then. I looked up all the information that I could find. Yeah? And whatever trends might be happening. I look up Lebanon trees, whatever, that's that. And I look at myself, and I looked like I was very young looking for my age, okay? And I was not wealthy at all. I was fortunate enough to go to schools on scholarships, but I didn't own coats and ties and suits, anything that would fit me at that stage of my world, right? So I say to myself, I got to be ready for this interview. Dating a girl at the time, okay? and who ended up being the mother of my children, ultimately. Okay. I'm like, what am I going to do? She went out and got a credit card so we could buy my first suit. Okay. So we bought a suit from a place in Missouri called Mr. Guy. Okay. So Mr. Guy, I get my suit. Okay?
Yep.
Then I'm like, all right, I got to look more sophisticated. So I went to Marshall's, TJ Maxx, and bought a little like valise sort of like suitcase so I could look like I had papers or important things to do. And I'm like, all right, I'm ready to go. And I want to go do this interview. And mind you, I had gotten one interview out of a friend that interviewed me out of kindness, but they didn't have a job. This was my first interview. And I'm thinking to myself, I have no money. I need to do this for the family, and I need a career. And I had gone for, my last bit was in journalism. I looked for journalism careers. I did well, but the journalism, even back then, was paying almost nothing. I was a bouncer at a bar and a manager at a bar. I made more money doing that than I would have in a journalism career. Okay. So I was like, all right, let's go do this. Let's win this interview. I do my little studying. I'm ready. I've done all my background for my prospect. I go in. It's in Missouri. It's in St. Louis. I walk in, and there's a holding room, not much bigger than this room here, this barrel house. A bunch of men are in there. In my mind, old men, probably in their 30s. Okay. And I'm like, oh, shit. These guys have got experience. I don't know what I'm going to say. I get in the room. Okay. So I get in the room, look around, and it's kind of like a back room of a small office. And the man behind the desk he stands up, probably 5'3". Okay. He's got curly, long red hair, like Krusty the Clown type, or, that really long, clownish, bright red hair. And his name was Jamal. And he talked like this. He says, my name is Jamal Khatib. How are you? And I was like, hey, Jamal, how are you? Nice to meet you. And he goes, tell me about yourself, And we sit down and we start talking, okay? I walk in. He's like, hello. And I'm like, how are you? Nice to see you. Sounds great. And I just said, hey, I just want to get right to the point. I don't know much about computers. I don't know much about Cedar Computer Center. I've done some research. This is what I think the trends are. This is what's going on with Hewlett Packard. There's this new thing called Ethernet networking, okay? And servers. This is the first beginning of Intel-based servers.
This is Ethernet. This is like the transition from token ring networking to IP-based, from Ethernet. Yeah,
they were selling.
This is a big transition.
This was. So it's interesting.
This is a platform shift of networking,
like AI. I think of that sort of pushing things out to the edge back then from a mainframe,
distributed from the mainframe. You had mainframe to distributed application server based, hosted database models, all being made possible by that transition from token ring connectivity to Ethernet,
and just
which is what the world still runs on today, right?
And what's so crazy about all of this is, and we'll get back to sales process and how all those things work, but what's crazy to me, just having lived now through a few of these iterations, everything was mainframe, push the power to the edge.
Yeah.
Then you go cloud, everything's cloud, push the power with dumb workstations, right? With SaaS, yeah. And then
pull the stack back.
It's amazing to me. So I tell them about this stuff, yeah. And I go, this is what I think. And I said, before you even go any further, I was a Division I athlete. I was on scholarship. I'm very coachable. I'm not a giant man. I always had to work harder than anybody else. I've seen failure more than I've seen success. I'll make you a deal right now. And I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I had worked in bars for so long and like odd jobs being exempt from taxes. I didn't fully understand the concept of taxes. Okay. So I said, I'll work for free. Hire me for free. And whatever this job is that you're talking about, I'm going to be the best at it. Or if I'm not, I'm going to be the hardest worker and I will listen. And he goes, I like you. I'll hire you. And I was like, no shit. And I was like, yeah. So he goes, let's take a ride in my car right there. And there was like an outside door on the back of the room to go outside. I'm like, okay. I remember it like yesterday. It was a Lexus, whatever it was at the time, an LS or something. It was white. We get in the car. And it was nice, And I was pretty poor. And he said, "Do you want a Fig Newton?" He had Fig Newton. I hate Fig Newtons. I still think they're gross. And I was like, that's a delicious cookie, you know? So I eat this Fig Newton. He drives me around and he goes, just let me explain to you how this is going to work. And he said, what we do is we resell Hewlett Packard. Okay? And that's all we do, nobody else. And we distribute it. We're a stocking distributor. They called it a DAVAR back then, but as a distributor of ours, it's what CDW became. Okay?
Yeah.
So we had stock. He goes, here's what you need to know. And then I'm going to have you come up to Des Moines. I'm going to train you for a day. And then you're going to move to LA.
One day.
One day. Okay?
One day.
So here's what he says in the car. Your job is to make the prospect, the person you're selling to, he said, the hero. Okay? That's what he said. I was like, okay. And he goes, just know that, and I'll see you in Des Moines. Fast forward, I had to borrow my dad's car. I didn't own a car. I couldn't afford a car. It was a whole thing, yeah? I go to Des Moines, 7-hour drive in his Chrysler LeBaron. So I get up there. He sits me down, and he goes, this is what you need to know. When you walk into a room like this, what you need to look at is at the person that you're talking to. Is he wearing a watch? Does he have a picture of his kids behind him? Does he have awards of whatever he did? You know, look around and try to understand something personal about this person, because at the end of the day, Matt, it's people buy from who they like to buy from. That's one thing, okay? He said the second thing that you need to do about making them the hero is understand as fast as you can what it is their MBOs are, their KPIs, their career goals. So how are they measured and what do they want, okay?
Great advice.
Smart, right?
Still holds true in all the value selling that we teach sellers to do today, and these prescriptive approaches and these solution frameworks.
Yep.
At the end of the day, it's all coming back to
well, you know, to
a couple
quote,
lessons like
to
this.
quote my old guys at PTC, why buy now, and why buy from me, right?
I forgot to mention PTC in your
Oh yeah, PTC. Hey, cheers to PTC.
Yeah, it's a great, you know, there's a lot of great, speaking of solution selling, I mean, such a great framework birthed out of that sales model. So many great leaders, just dozens and dozens of leaders coming out of that, the echelon of that sales team there, and those sales leaders, and the impact of that sales framework being rolled out now across all of tech sales as the default, you know, opportunity framework, the default value selling methodology.
The reason, you know, honestly, that I was so excited, again, we're kind of fast forwarding.
But
the reason I'm so excited about RSL and why I've been such an early adopter is because it's created by someone that came up in those same frameworks that I have been teaching, shoehorning into a CRM or any way that I could do it for the last 20 years, you know, since BTC.
I got schooled in it. This in BMC, post the Blade Logic acquisition. Let's go back to the moment when you're in Iowa.
Okay.
You're getting your first, your whole one day of sales training.
My one day.
Okay, let's go back there.
So he says, look around the room, figure that out. Find out what's personal to him. Find out what's personal to his compensation and his career, yeah? And then he goes, here's what you need to know. Once you know that, you just say to him, hey, listen, we're at the beginning of a new wave. We're using servers, and servers are going to change the way the world works. We're using intelligent workstations, desktops that didn't have any power before. Okay? And we're using this Ethernet networking that's going to move data around faster and more elegantly than it had ever been done before. Okay? He says, say that.
This is your pitch.
This is the beginning of the pitch.
You nailed that.
Okay. Then here's your value. And look, you know, it is what it is, but it was value. Number one, we have more of it. We stock it and we can deliver it faster. This is hardware days, yeah? Okay. And some beginning software.
Not too different, by the way, in the chip world that's powering all of the AI frontier models today.
Exactly.
I mean,
it's again full circle, right? So
okay, let's keep going.
And, you know, by the way, you go to the cloud, it's still a co-located, a bunch of server storage and networking sitting inside of all that, yeah?
Let's keep going.
So he's basically talking about server storage and networking, right? Tell them that. Tell them we have more of it. We can get it to them faster. And because we are only HP, we're experts, and you're going to be their expert because the HP sales reps only know how to sell mainframes at this point, risk-based processors, okay? And MAO, and token rings. And he said, you're the bridge between that and this new generation. You're going to help them by being an expert. You're a smart kid. You'll figure that part out. And we're going to train you. And then he said, lastly, just tell them we're less expensive. And I was like, okay, sounds great. So he ends the training with, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you, I think it was $1,000 to rent a truck. You're going to drive from St. Louis to LA. I'm going to pay you. I was like, you're going to pay me? It's like, yeah, I'm going to pay you $300 a week for 90 days and then you're all commission. Sounds great. So he goes, just know you are my corporate killer. And he goes, you're the corporate killer. And I'm like, I'm ready to be the corporate killer. Let's go, right? He made about $100 million and he literally disappeared. That's the beginning, okay? So I move out to California. I'm living in LA, Manhattan, Hermosa Beach, and I ended up moving up to Manhattan Beach in the South Bay, California. I get out there. Girlfriend moved out there with me. I am beyond poor, okay? I had like a Rottweiler from college. We had a little bit of college furniture. It was an insane trip getting out there. I moved out there on January 1st, cutting through the Midwest. It was just brutal, okay? Winter. I get out there. You had to wear coat and tie every day back then. So you had to have a coat and tie every day, okay?
Okay.
And I had a car that my father helped co-sign for me that if I turned it off, it wouldn't start again. So I had to jump it every time, okay?
We can talk about that today.
Okay, so anyway.
By the way, I didn't talk about this in the intro, but it's funny now. I think it's worth bringing up. Here you are talking about how you got started in sales.
Yeah.
And we're sitting in your barrel house for this interview.
Yeah.
You were $300 a week.
$300 a week.
You're making this cross-country journey.
I'm the corporate killer.
Okay. The corporate killer kid.
Okay. So
and the car has to be jumped every time you stop.
So it has to stay on.
Okay.
So all right. So here's what I'll do. I'll try to bring this home somewhat, make it relevant for people who are paying attention. Okay. I'll tell you about kind of how it worked. Yeah. And what's applicable today, what I did, which I think is as applicable today as it was when I started. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I can tell you kind of how I got the first deal, which I think is also applicable, like my first big deal. Yeah. There were like one or two of them, but
dig in, man.
Okay. All right. So I get there. I'm a child. This guy was a bigger guy. I had played football with him. So I got the suits. I couldn't afford a suit. So I took him in to get altered. The guy was so much bigger than me that when they altered it to fit my waist, the pockets on the back touched because they took them in from the sides. So I'm walking around LA selling computers, I sold to Guess Jeans. I sold to Blue Cross Blue Shield, all of these crazy places with suits that didn't even touch. I mean, where the pockets touched. I looked like an idiot, I'm sure. I've got my free suits, not cheap. I've got the car that doesn't turn off. I'm in there grinding, okay? Grinding. And what's intriguing is I think it was called ZD Data before it became all the tools that we use today. And it literally was stacks of paper with the build of what the technology they had in the company. We didn't have intent back then, okay? But we had full stack to understand what the tech was that they were using, and you'd buy this data, okay? So I was going through the data, and we did cold calls on the telephone, right? And here's what the man told me to do, okay, to make me stand out. This is still Jamal, okay? So Jamal says to me, Matt, you need to get opens of these letters, just like you need to get an open of an email.
Wow.
Okay, listen to this, man.
Tracking KPIs, man.
I literally was talking about this, 30 days ago. I'm on the board of a company and I was helping one of the younger sales leaders, okay? Right. So he goes, you need to get opens of the envelope. And I was like, okay. And he goes, so here's what you do. It's going to be typed out, because this is when we had laser printers for the first time, okay? And you're going to handwrite on the envelope information per your request and underline it in handwriting. He goes, that's going to get an open. I said, okay. And he goes, now inside, you're going to have done all the research on that paper. You're going to read the 10Ks or whatever it is about these companies. You're going to go study at the library, and you're not going to be a generic letter. And he said, executives aren't going to read things very fast. They're going to scan. Yep. Make it short, put 3 bullet points, get right to our value prop.
This guy was a great coach.
Dude, he was great.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this is just like today when we teach reps, you know, write it in bullet points, lead with a hook, get to the ask up
Assumptive
front.
close at the end.
3 proof points and bullet point structure.
100%.
Send it to yourself, test it on an iPhone screen so you
Yep.
know it's not too verbose.
Yep.
Great forcing functions.
Right?
That you know, I was taught, God, back in CA
Exactly.
so many years ago, 2
Exactly.
decades ago,
Exactly.
and still used today when we teach sellers
I would
how
argue
to write.
not used enough.
And even though you have AI now, like having highly personalized, automated outreach, I still believe that our human sellers and prospectors like need to know how to write these, still need to know how to do these basic things.
I think so too.
It's like, man, my kids, like, they'll probably, my youngest, like, could probably get through life and self-driving cars and, you know, robo taxis.
Yep.
Still going to teach him how to drive the car.
Yep.
Still a skill he needs to know one day, right?
That's right.
In general.
Yep. I agree.
And this guy's teaching it to you, all that same principle, all those principles, he's teaching you back in
early 90s that are completely applicable today. Completely. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I got to get opens. That's that.
Yeah.
Do my research, do that. Make it readable, make it that. Make it show that you did the homework on the company because not everybody knows these things.
Yeah.
You know, right? And how much can you coach every minute of the day? This guy was able to coach me directly. How often do you get to coach your reps? You know,
Yeah,
right? Right.
Not nearly as much as I want. Especially as you know, I mean, what's the largest org you've built out, man?
Let's say 5,000-ish people.
You asked the question of like, how much time do you spend coaching your reps on these things? Or this is one example, but we could talk about this in context of deal execution and forecasting and negotiation strategies. We talk about BVAs. We could so many angles we could talk through on this. There's so many paths to go through, and you want to spend time coaching all of them on all of the angles. The reality is you can't. You end up spending time building operating plans, running forecasts with and for the board and the exec team, spending time with your cross-functional peers across the org, making sure that product is being built the right way. There's feedback considered in the process, support's humming, like, you know, all these things that go into making a great customer experience so you can build a great company, great product, which serves its customers so you can build a great company, all that. And that's your job. Yeah. That's great.
Right.
So then you have to hire like layers and layers and tiers of leadership. And then when you do get into the leadership coaching, you're coaching leaders on coaching leaders. So those leaders can coach leaders to coach reps. You know, and my experience is, man, it's really hard to get consistency of excellence and execution at scale.
Agreed.
Like as much time as reps waste not selling because they're doing other tasks, leaders, second line and above leaders spend that much toil trying to get first line leaders to establish consistency and execution with their reps.
Yep. And
it's hard because humans have natural variation and bias built in. We just do, right? Our experiences, our varying intellect, the varying degrees at which we naturally are drawn, energy is naturally drawn to different parts of the cell cycle. And you're better at some part, like everyone's better at some portions of it than others. And they want to go there, and because that's natural, you go where you're good.
Yep.
And when you start running people, then you're kind of creating blind spots, unaware of the fact that you're creating blind spots with great intentions.
Yep.
And then as a leader across leaders, your job is to spot those blind spots, coach the correction, and it's like fucking whack-a-mole, man, at scale. It's really hard.
I would argue there's another little piece there too, which is, let's just say you're the source of truth, right? And then you play the telephone game, or however you want to play this game, or what analogy you want to use. You've got what good looks like, and then you've got all of the signal that goes through and the noise that gets bound to that new rep that just started. I would argue without absolute best in class, very unique ability, how does your message make it to that person, and how can you coach that person? But one of the things that I really like about what you've done, it allows those frontline managers, so they were a super rep and now they're coaching.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the hardest job in sales. We all know
Hard,
that. It's
man.
the hardest. You're not making as much money. You don't have the control. You're not the star. That message, that core message that we grew up learning at BMC, CA, PTC, EMC. So that frontline manager, that second line manager, that third line manager, depending on the size of the orgs that I'm running or you're running or your customers are running, they're seeing what I want them to see. Back to the ridiculous story. So he's like, okay, do your research, send this letter. Okay. I said, fine. And he said, at the bottom of the letter, make sure you write, I'm looking forward to working with you, ! Okay. To show that you personalized it. And your last line of the letter is, I'm going to call you next week. Okay. So you'll know that it's me. We didn't have email yet. I sent these letters out and a manager was running the place. I found out years later, he hired people in St. Louis and in Iowa and in Kansas because he was from the Midwest. So he would track me against the other reps. And I got more opens. I got more phone calls that were answered. Yeah? Mm-hmm. So now, beginning of metrics. How are you doing? What do your opens look like? And he didn't call them that, but that's what it was. Mm-hmm. Yeah? And finally, I got a chance. I had sent out one of my emails. By the way, in between here, they invented the fax machine, which allowed us to get things real time, okay? I get one of these letters open. I get a call from the Hewlett-Packard rep, okay, that worked for HP. And she was great. I loved her. Her name was Lisa, okay? She sold mainframes. And what I had done as a reseller, okay, for anybody that does reselling, I had ingratiated myself with the HP reps. Okay, so the other thing, because he said, make them a hero, right? I asked the HP reps, how do you guys get paid? And how does that work? And whatever. And they're like, the way that we get paid is we have quota on these mainframes.
Understand their comp and you understand their behavior.
Compensation drives all behavior.
Right.
So anyway, I had asked the HP reps, specifically this lady, Lisa, and I said, how does it really work? And she said, look, we've got these core products, but these servers, we don't know anything about them. I don't understand this Ethernet. I don't understand the printing and the workstations that we had, okay? And she goes, but we're getting quoted on them. They won't unlock our quota unless we sell these things. And I go, well, how does that system work? And, again, there weren't a lot of computers, okay? So she goes, well, we have to fill out these forms, whatever the hell they were called. And then we submit the forms and it goes through the thing. And I go, okay, well, all I do is sell HP. We don't sell anything else. I'm never going to sell anything else. If you bring me into a deal, I'm going to know everything about these servers. And I, told her how I was good at studying, so I could do the deal points. I'm like this, and why we were better than Compaq before we bought Compaq, why we were better than whoever. There were hardly anybody back then, okay? Or why was it better than a mainframe? So I knew the value, yeah? And I said, I can drive that value home for you, and I'll tell you what I'll do for you. I will fill out those forms for you, and you'll get your quota credit, and then you can unlock your stuff. You just introduce me to the clients. So I learned early on in the channel how to leverage the OEM, the ISV, back in the day. And she learned how to leverage the channel. And it was just this beautiful relationship. Okay? So I learned that early, like I was 22.
Yeah. You're establishing scale beyond
someone
yourself.
Selling, she was
beyond
my champion.
your immediate team and cost structure.
Yeah.
Which translates to leadership lessons.
Yeah,
later.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of my letters or whatever got through and she called me.
Okay.
And she goes, there's these guys. They're from Illinois. I think you might resonate with them because you're from Missouri. They're a startup. They're in Pasadena. They're using a Hewlett-Packard pen plotter. It was like for engineering drawings. They were really cool devices. Okay. And they had these different color inks and they would just go and draw these things. Okay. They're using this pen plotter for a unique application. I would love you to talk to them. Okay. And they're coming to this trade show. And I used to get to sit in the HP booths because I knew more about that stuff than they did. Yeah. I didn't want to go, by the way. My mom was in town. I went to the trade show. These guys walk up and they say, hey, blah, 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 blah. You're from Missouri. I said, yeah. Where are you from? I knew where they were from. And they said, okay, come out to our office. This is so apropos because he called me. We have the same birthday, this gentleman and I. Okay, same date. It was June 8th. And I drove out to this place. I used to wear a coat and tie every day. The first thing I did when I got out to their office, they go, take off your tie. That's ridiculous. You don't need to do that. I'm like, yeah, cool, no problem. I had to leave my car on outside. Okay? They say, hey, we're looking for someone that can help us. They had invented something called the Creative Card, which was a kiosk. And it had a touch screen, the first touch screen for non-military use in the United States, a CD-ROM that they were putting data on that no one else was doing, and inside of a clone, actually. And it started with an HP computer. It turned out to be a clone later, okay? And an HP pen plotter. And what it did was it printed out a greeting card right in front of you at a store, and it was personalized. It ended up being a gigantic company. They were bought by American Greetings, okay? And it changed the entire way greeting cards were done, because if you think about the old days, before any electronic, before the internet or anything, a greeting card used to take like upwards of 6 months to a year. Someone had to make the art. They had to send it somewhere to proof. They had to do this. They had to get it to the store. American Greetings had a lot of grocery and Target, Kmart back then, and different retailers. Hallmark had their own stores. But either way, the chain of getting a new idea to market took almost a year. Okay. These guys came up with a way of doing a personalized card. Hey, Jason, that wasn't ever written on a card before. And they did licensing contracts with the NFL and different quarterbacks, and you could put different pictures on them. It was really cool. They said, hey, we've got this idea. And they were tiny. We need somebody that's going to work for us, be our champion inside of HP, whatever, that knows stuff and is going to hustle. And I'm like, dude, I'm a corporate killer. I'm going to hustle. Yeah. And they said, okay, you're our guy. Okay. So I sold them a couple units and then a couple units. They ended up moving to Cleveland, Ohio, where American Greetings was based. Okay? I moved to Cleveland, Ohio, and had one of our branches of this reseller before we sold it. That's where I was doing the $300-400 million a year in revenue. And they probably accounted for $200 million of it. Okay. But so I get this deal.
As an Ohio guy. If there's an audience out there.
To Ohio. Yeah. My daughter was born in Ohio. But here's what he called me and told me 2 days ago, whatever it was, we were filming this. He called me, he goes, Matt, I teach leadership classes. He's gone on, he's made a bunch of money. He's actually a legit rocket scientist and nuclear engineer. And he goes, I could read you the text. I teach leadership classes all the time. And one of the things that I bring up often, he said as early as a few weeks ago, is how there was this young guy came out corporate killer in a suit that didn't fit and a car that we knew wouldn't start, but we could hear it running in the parking lot. And you never told us. And the reason that we chose you is because you were willing to drive 3 hours back then, because LA is a disaster, right?
Yeah.
I had to come up to 405, go out to Pasadena and all this crap. And he goes, we knew though that you were willing to hustle and that you were a grinder. And we loved all of those things that this man Jamal taught me was the reason why that they hired me. So that's how I got my first deal. That's how I started in sales. And that's the end of that very long story.
So that's how you got your first deal.
Yeah.
Selling HP, and eventually translates into a much broader career where you end up at HP Enterprise. I love the story.
Yeah.
I
don't get to tell that very often, by the way.
Phenomenal.
Oh, thanks.
I want to come back to some of the leadership principles that we talked about. Some of the attributes we think about, the reason you got hired, the reason you got that deal, like all these things. Let's start there.
Okay.
We talked about work ethic. We talked about coachability and listening. Even your customers are seeing that you're a grinder.
Yeah.
They probably translate to that in some way to working hard on their behalf, not just to get the deal, but
we hope
for them, for
we
their
hope.
success.
Yeah.
So let's get into it, man. How do you build your orgs? You said you managed 3,000, 5,000 salespeople, along your career. You've built these big companies. You've hyper growth startups. You've done turnarounds.
Yes.
Tough.
Have.
Tougher than jumping on a rocket ship that's an obvious hyper growth opportunity that you just have to scale and feed, which, by the way, is not easy. It's hard to.
Yeah. They have their unique challenges.
But different set of challenges and turnarounds. I would argue higher risk. That's the second question I want to ask, by the way.
Okay.
Is why you've done multiple turnarounds.
Oh, we can talk about that.
But,
yeah, for sure.
So you choose your path. Which one do you go? This is like watching one of those interactive TV shows.
We can choose our own adventure. Yeah?
You choose your own adventure. All right. Which one of these tracks do you want to go down? How you build orgs or choosing, turnarounds a couple times over versus just hyper growth rocket ships?
I can answer easily the org bit. In that scenario, I was the CEO of the Americas for NTT.
Okay.
NTT Security at the time. I think we were probably second or third largest security company in the world at the point. Yeah. I was on the board. One of the gentlemen that I worked with at Coralogix had become a VC. He introduced me to the founder of this Israeli young man that had started this company, who's a genius. And he said, hey, it's an observability company. They're going to compete against Datadog and some others. Coralogix, I had left. I had done a turnaround. Sumo had gone public, so I felt very comfortable thinking about observability because I would never have competed against my OG company, He said, hey, why don't you join the board? I want to introduce you to this founder, okay? So he introduced me to the founder. I love the guy. Young man, brilliant, comes from a long line of mathematicians, 200 unit in Israel, all the cyber, all the smarts, all that stuff, yeah? I was on his original advisory board. It was me. It was a gentleman that ran Splunk, a big organization at Splunk, and ServiceNow CISO. Okay. It was the three of us. It was 2018, I think. He had 10 employees, maybe. He had cycled through one CEO, had another one. I joined the board, and I was trying to help him with go-to-market. And what do you do? How do you build these things? Same question literally just asked me, like, how do you build it up? He didn't have a soul in the United States. Didn't have anybody in England. It was all in Israel and India. That's where they were starting. And, that sales motion in Israel and India are kind of similar. It's a different motion than UK, United States, some of the EU, as you've gone around the world. Every region's got its own unique characteristics. The pandemic hit, okay? And I had decamped up to here from the city to my farm up here in Napa, where we are today. We had sold a company to NTT. I had become the CEO. We had kept the company as a subsidiary that we sold to NTT. And I had just done this massive McKinsey. We took 20 operating units, brought them into one big operating unit. Think of like the most dogmatic, hierarchical. This is a Japanese 100-year-old company that was doing 120 billion a year in revenue. So very unstructured. I had gotten through a point where we had done that job. The Japanese CEO who did it, they have a contract and then they swap out. So we were coming up on a swap out. So the global CEO, who was my boss, Matt Jide, by the way, if you're out there, he's a great guy, and I, and some others were like, we're not going to do another 3-year, 4-year run through this. We've already done, and they wanted to do one more consolidation of these things. Okay? So, I liked a little more nimbleness. And the founder of Coralogix said to me, he's like, Matt, instead of doing a turnaround or whatever it is you do, why don't you come here and do it? And I'm like, no. Just like I told my mom, about sales. I'm like, dude, you're tiny. I don't do tiny. You don't have any salespeople. You have 2. You're in Israel. And I don't understand the value of what you're doing. It doesn't make sense to me. Okay? Because it always starts with value. Always starts with value.
How was that received by the founder?
Not great.
You ended up getting the job, so I guess it went okay. But.
Yeah, it's another test that we can test people just the way they test us, and our customers and our clients and our prospects test us. I was testing my future boss. Well, how is he going to react? Is he going to take feedback? Any of that stuff, right? So he goes, no. We do something different. I'm like, well, tell me. And this gets back to value selling. What's the value? I don't understand. You haven't articulated the value to me. Yeah. And he goes, no, the value is we don't have to index everything that we do for observability. And basically you take all the digital exhaust, the logs, the metrics, tracing, but right then it was just logs. You're able to find root cause analysis of things that are broken. That's it. Yeah. Splunk did it. Datadog does it. Dynatrace does it. Whomever.
Not to sell Coralogix, but you had to, at that point, because the value selling framework, you had to be looking for the difference between value and uniquely defensible value.
100%. So I am asking literally the questions. So it's funny. One of the reasons I like what you guys are doing, I asked him, so what's the before scenario? What's the issue that you're solving?
Yeah.
And he says, well, the problem is everybody has to index stuff, so they have to buy storage and compute to do it. And it doesn't matter if it's Splunk or Datadog, they either buy it in the cloud or they buy it on-prem, and it's expensive. Okay. And it keeps getting more and more because there's overages because the data keeps coming. Yeah. That's one. And I go, okay, that's fine. And he goes, and I go, so what's the negative business consequence in the value framework? Yeah. And he goes, they're unpredictable. There's overages and it's expensive. Yeah. I'm like, okay. And data's growing faster than blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, I got that. I go, well, how do they measure that? Literally a playbook from BTC.
So this is great. So you're using the, it's funny, right? The value selling framework. We teach sellers every day how to use this through their sales journey.
Yep.
Like little side rant here.
Yeah.
This bothers me. And I ask people in an interview, like, what sales process do you use? They go, MEDDIC.
Yeah.
MEDDIC.
Yeah.
It's not a fucking sales
it's not
process.
a sales process. That's the thing.
It's an opportunity qualifier framework that gives you sort of the insights into the risks and the roadmap to the next steps as you progress and work your opportunity. It's not a sales process.
It is not.
Solution selling process, in this case, value-based selling is what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And by the way, like Oracell and companies you're involved with, we have nothing to do with any of that.
Yeah.
Not like we don't sell consulting around or anything.
Long as there is a
It just, you and I happen to be practitioners in the process,
right?
And a bit of purists, I think. Value-based selling is more about exactly what you're describing right now.
So to me, the way I explain MEDDIC or MEDDIC is it's simple. And literally, it's like I was there when Moses brought the tablets down from the mountain. I know Jack Napoli, that Jack did it, okay, right? And McMahon and all of us, we're all from that background, yeah?
Yeah, we all
but
work
here's the
from
thing.
yeah.
What everyone forgets is we also did the value selling bit. MEDDIC to me was a language and a way that we could speak about deals and have a common vernacular and see where the holes were.
I tell everybody it's not a sales process. It's an opportunity framework. It's the way that we can create a normalized vocabulary for which we can all efficiently follow one another.
And also, to your point earlier, that you can go down line from the top down and everyone's speaking the same language, right?
That's it.
Yep.
So go back to how you're now taking the value selling framework, which is about understanding the real pain gain, business consequences.
How do you measure the consequences?
Yes.
I mean, the value framework, just very quickly, what's the current business state? What's the negative business impact? How do you measure that? In a perfect world, what would your future state look like? Where do we play in that future state?
How do you uniquely drive that?
How do you measure that
outcome?
Success? What are the metrics that you measure that outcome? Okay, good versus bad. How do I do it? How do I do it differently than anyone else? Better than everybody else? The same, whatever. And then lastly, don't take my word for it. Here's who we've done it for before.
Proof points.
That's it.
And it overlays against the whys.
It does.
It plays beautifully into the why do anything? Why do anything now?
Why buy? Why buy now? Why buy
why
from
us?
Right?
Right? This is the cool part about your story. What we're teaching sales reps to do today still, you and I learned a long time ago. And now, as recent as, when was your conversation with the founder? Before you started this Coralogix?
The end of 2020.
So just 6 years ago, you're now deploying the exact same framework, same model in a conversational delivery to determine whether or not you're going to take this job as a president of this company.
That's exactly right.
For the people out there listening, not to sound like the old guy that believes in this whole framework, we're sitting in your Napa house and your vineyard and your barrel house. You did something right along the way, and you're using this framework to filter your next job opportunity as a president.
Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you,
it's
one
good
more
enough
story
for that.
about
It should be good enough for you
listen,
sellers and your opportunities.
I agree with you. To answer your story, he says, look, we don't have to index. We can do it in stream. So it's faster, it's better, it's cheaper significantly because we're not reselling all of this stuff. Yeah. And we're starting with logs, but we're going to expand into a full service, blah, 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 blah. And we work harder than anybody else. We're Israeli, we bust ass, we can get code out fast, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know what? I like that. That's different. It's differentiatable. It's a unique differentiator. Yeah. He goes, look, Matt, worst case, set it up. You can leave whenever you want. It's the pandemic. What else are you going to do? And we get along really well. Let's grow this company. So we went from $2 million in ARR, which I'm going to be generous. He says 2. I think it was less, but we fight about things every now and then. So let's call it 2. 2 million. I think Splunk had tried to buy us. What I know that we were getting ready to do our Series B because I was on the board. So we had raised maybe $10 million total. And so I came in as chief operating officer and president, and together in the pandemic, just last week they announced I'm tangentially involved with the company still, and very much care about how they do. We announced a valuation of about 1.8 billion at 150. When I left full time doing it, we got to 150 in ARR, and we did it with a magic number, if anybody cares about that kind of stuff, of 1. So we were I know you care.
Of course, I care deeply about it. I know what it is. But for those out there that might be in the learning mode, if the younger version of ourselves could pull up to a couple execs, go-to-market execs at the bar, which for anybody who cares, this is not water.
No, it is not. Yeah.
Let's tell them what it is.
Yeah, let's get into it. So look, it took me a long time to earn the right to be at the table. And I'm very thankful to the executives that taught me and let me do it. You got to work to get to the table, and that's fine. But the net of it is, when you get to the point where he's at, or if you're trying to grow a company, or if you're on the board of a company, the idea is growth is great, but smart growth is better. And the metrics the companies care about, it's just the same thing we're talking about with these frameworks. They don't really change, right? At the end of the day, companies are about making profit. That's it, right?
Now, you go through phases.
No, there's times you're not profitable.
Yeah, of course.
But
I want to make sure people understand.
Yeah.
You go through phases, right? Like, Of course, you care about gross margins.
Right.
Eventually, you care about efficiency.
Yes.
They yield profits. In the early days, we're talking about building a company from, a couple million, like you're talking about, or Harness when we were $1 million. I jumped in.
Yep.
Gross margins, profitability. That's not what you're worried about.
Burn.
You got to first. You care about customer acquisition.
Yeah.
And that's like logos.
Customer acquisition cost, CAC.
Yeah.
So when you're little,
logos, grow the revenue. And the magic number, which is what you brought up, and we'll go back to that, for a very long time in the industry, was considered to be that sort of one neutralizing metric that you could focus on as you go through these growth phases to blend that top line revenue growth against the cost of
what you're doing. So basically, the idea is really simple. And people do, there's a little fungibility to it, but generally, it's a ratio of the ARR, what you're selling in a quarter forward versus the cost of all the sales and marketing underneath it, basically, right?
Yeah.
And a 0.75 is good, 0.5 is bad, 1 is great. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then
and it does separate. It does separate the product. The product margin hit out.
Yeah,
and that's why it's called the magic number, because it's focused on go-to-market. In the era of AI, man, AI is a whole
things
different
have
thing.
changed recently.
Yeah,
for sure.
and
For sure.
now I run a business where we operate not on seats, but we sell a platform fee.
Yep,
and then from there, AI usage is unlocked based on how our customers are using the product and getting value out of the product. We don't charge for features. We don't charge for modules. We don't charge for seats.
Right.
It is a different world.
It is. It is.
You still have to care about the basics of the company and the health of the company and those metrics that come in. It does create a bit of a different, look, if the product's great, people are getting value out of your AI capabilities, that portion of the spend is going to take off.
Yeah.
It will create a flywheel. You do measure it slightly differently in the early days.
You do.
In the end, you're going to come around to basic principles
of
building
economics.
of building a great business.
Right. Getting back to your question about these guys, it was, how do we build a business smart? Obviously, you do care about, let's first get the customers.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that we're growing right. Let's make sure that you're retaining the customers. These are core principles that exist pre-AI, post-AI.
Sure, yeah.
That's it, right? So know your ICP. You got to know your ideal customer profile. You got to build out your personas. Again, it comes back to the value of the platform. Let's make sure that we are differentiating ourselves, that we're selling what's on the truck, that we can deliver what's on the truck, and that we retain our customers. And in a perfect world, you can upsell and cross-sell to those customers because it's cheaper to sell to an existing customer. I mean, if we're talking to somebody that came to us 20 years ago that would have told us, those principles still exist.
Yeah. I mean, when people use product that unlocks AI usage billing, it's still a form of upsell, and the way that you used to upsell more of the same product, it's measured differently. Consumption's measured differently.
Observability wasn't that much different. We would sell them observability, and they would need to consume more, right? Because you have more digital exhaust. But
so that was a great build journey that we unpacked and somehow got into metrics, which is fine.
So wait, I will tell you one last framework fast story. I literally, at Coralogix, with the founder, and I can say this because I don't mind anybody at the company that I'm not going to, it's a large technology company, we sold to $100+ million deal.
So is that the biggest single deal that you sold?
You know, it's funny.
Over 100 million plus?
I think.
In a single deal?
No. I think in a single PO, it was the largest deal I ever had.
Yeah, it's huge.
Single PO. I sold more back in the day, right? To the creator card thing.
Single deal though.
Biggest single deal I've ever had. But check this out. By the way, I was president and COO, and he was CEO. I was the rep. He was the SE. Never changes. Okay. The wrap up to the CEO of one of the most prestigious companies globally was me saying, so your current, just to wrap everything up, Mr. So-and-so, I'm this pedantic. I don't need to play jazz. I play the scales. So your current state is this. The negative business consequences that you were measuring it this way. Here's what we're doing. Here's how we're doing it differently. That's going to change your world. This is the goal that we want to get to. We've done, and this is what we do totally different than what you have today. And here's what we've done it before that's going to be similar to what you're doing, but nothing at your scale. Are you guys good with this? If we get through this proof of value, we're going to do X, Y, and Z and prove these points out. We're good. He's like, absolutely. And I'm like, and we're going to close it on these dates. And the process to close it is this. I mean, like a robot, not a problem. And we closed it. So that's that.
You say you did it like a robot, but I don't think you did. Here's why I say that. You followed a framework, but you delivered it conversationally.
For sure.
So I think that's a delineation, by the way, because I've actually had problems where in the past where people that have worked for me, reps and even VPs, you put them through this training. God love them, man. They go out and they want to put it to work, which is great because it's hard to make enablement stick. They want to put it to work. And then next thing you know, I'm getting calls from a customer or I'm hearing something from partners. And it's like, hey, this VP walked into an account and basically, took a floodlight and the equivalent of putting him through a CIA interview over, and like this qualifier list with this framework model. I don't blame the framework. I really don't. Listen, you got to understand that this is still a human-to-human job. If it wasn't, an agent to agents would be making the decision, right? And there will be some of that, I believe, in the future.
Yeah, me too.
For like high velocity, low friction, product decisions, onboarding, digital swiping, like all the stuff that we used to consider self-service onboarding. Like when I ran Twilio, sales at Twilio, people come in, they swipe a credit card and they get $1 on their account and they can immediately access the product. There was like tens of thousands of those per month. And I used to look at them as highly qualified leads, which is fine. It's great. And in the future, man, with the agent autonomy executing everywhere, I mean, even in our platform, that part of what used to be self-service and PLG fed will become agentically led.
Agreed. Agent talking to agent.
Agents talking to agents. Quick decision factors. Pick one. Digitally pay. Build the integration, onboard, go.
I agree.
On the other side of that, I firmly believe high value items, highly complex technologies, high stakes, impact decisions / technology / products for the business, still going to be human led.
I agree.
So if it's human led, you got to bring the humanity into the conversation while you apply the framework.
Right, exactly.
I thought this was intuitive. As I was scaling harness, man, like I got some of this feedback after some enablement. Wow, we have to add to our enablement. Conversational discovery is what we called it. We had to teach people how to take the framework that you just articulated and naturally work it into a conversation.
Exactly right.
You can't be a pure robot about delivering that framework.
I
don't believe you were on $100 million deal.
I definitely follow the framework. The jazz part of it, to your point, is there's a lot of ways that you can do it where you're not an asshole.
Yes.
And you're not interrogating somebody.
It just starts with intent.
Exactly.
You can use your framework with positive intent. You lead with positive intent, put that on top of that framework, you're going to execute
well. How about the simplest of things, okay? In our world, and in, I believe, every high-performance sales organization, you should not run to a proof of value. I don't call them proof of concepts, a proof of value. You shouldn't go to a proof of value in my world unless we have met with the economic buyer who's going to sign the check. That's me, okay? Sure. I want to know, and it can be a 15-minute conversation or less, but I want to make sure there's a lot of reasons why, right? Now, on the sales side, we want to make sure that they know about the project, that there's real budget, that they're going to sign the paperwork, that they know what the POC is about. All of these things, we're testing our champion. Yeah. Forget all that. For me, what I have to tell some reps and managers and VPs, you don't say, my boss said that you have to do da. The answer is, hey, we have 3,000 customers. We're number one in Gartner peer reviews. We're top end right Magic Quadrant of Gartner. We care about our customers so deeply. This is the best practice that we follow to make sure that we're aligned with you guys, because all software has trouble being implemented at some point. We would love to have our executive talk to your executive for 10 minutes, make sure we're aligned so they can talk. And by the way, we just want to make sure we're doing everything right for you. That is a completely different conversation than my boss says I can't do it unless I meet with you. I did use conversational intent with the CEO of a 3-letter company.
I am not criticizing you. I'm telling you, I know you well enough to know you were not robotic.
No, but I still follow the framework.
You were deliberate.
Yes.
But you were not robotic, and there's a difference.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So that's that. All right, so what's the next question? We need to get a drink. It's drunk history. The number, this is where we'll get a lot better, and I think we'll learn a lot more. The
drunk history of go-to-market. We talked a little bit about one of the build examples. I'm going to say maybe I'll take the easy way out.
Yeah.
My first startup, leaving big companies, CA and then BMC.
Nope.
Post BMC, I wanted to get into startups.
Yep.
My first startup was Meraki.
Yep.
And I caught the startup. It was hyper growth.
I remember.
I went in at about 11 million. 4.5 years later, we were 600 million.
Nope.
It's a crazy fun, hockey stick ride.
Nope.
And I decided right then and there, man, I'm always going to seek out this hyper growth, fun startup journey. You have chosen a couple of times to go a different path.
Right.
I would consider that to be a tougher path.
Yeah.
We should tell everybody they've worked out.
Yeah, they've worked out fine.
They worked out great.
Fine. Yeah.
And from the company's perspective and your personal perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been great. And you can have great outcomes in both paths.
Yeah, you can.
Equally.
Yeah.
Why did you choose it?
Okay.
How did you build it differently?
Okay.
When you compare the two differentiated lessons learned.
So the short answer, as best I can put it on why the turnaround / let's call it rescaling, but it's turnaround. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that I come from this family of creative people. Okay. So my late father and my late mother were highly creative. My father was an artist. He was a PhD, he's a doctorate of fine arts. My mother was an interior designer. I had all this creativity in my life. And somehow I grew up in this world where I don't paint. I did journalism. That's a little creative. I love to cook. Okay, that's a creative outlet. But for me, the idea of taking a complex problem like a turnaround and fixing it brings me joy. So that's straight up the reason. I love fixing problems.
It's still building.
Yeah. It's building. It's in a different way. But there's more of a unpacking. And trying to figure out what pieces are there, what can you put together, And then it gets back to the core principles we talked about. So the net of it is the challenge of taking something that had worked and then stopped working, that discovery, that journey of helping the people that stayed and helping their careers and seeing that transformation and culture in their, look, compensation drives behavior, in compensation to feel success. So, I played sports, that, without getting into all that. Yeah. There's something wonderful about that grind and seeing the results. Yeah. And I'm not saying that you can't see that in a hyper growth company at all. Yeah. And it has its own unique challenges for sure and pressures. But for me, that's the reason. So that's number one. Okay. Number two is the processes that we've been talking about. MEDDIC, some sort of sales framework. Yeah. We have ours. Hiring leaders that are intelligent, that have high EQ, they care about their people, they care about their customers, people that are grinders and willing to put in the work, and people that, are competitive. And competitive, you could be a competitive musical theater person. You could be a competitive chess player. You don't have to be some weird version of a Navy SEAL to have competition in your bones. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You want to succeed. I love finding that. I like building that. There's this weird part of me, and I know you can appreciate this, dude. Our jobs are so, and anyone that's watching this, it's a grind, man. You're busting your ass. You're on the phone. You're dialing for dollars. I don't care if you're the founder. I don't care if you're the CEO, not founder, the president, this, that, the CROs. You're still pressure, giant grind, right? There's this calmness that I get in the middle of the most chaos. That's my absolute happy, calm place. So I used to kickbox. Yeah. Mm. And in the ring, my name was called the Smiling Assassin. I used to smile. Okay. And yeah, that's a little weird, but the most calm I am or was in that scenario is in the ring, because I know I've done all the preparation. I knew all the things that I needed to do. I knew, and then I was just focused at the job at hand. And so for a turnaround for me, or something that has a complex problem, and turnarounds can be inside. I've done turnarounds inside of a massive company. Yeah. Right? You've been parts of very large companies. Doing that brings me joy. So that's why I do it, straight up. And frankly, it pays really well, because, at the end of the day, that is where it comes down to. And it's not about money. It's about, that's how we compete. And, if you're going to look at it, it's not like we have a box score in a basketball game. Yeah. I'm certainly, and you and I aren't going to get a bunch of rebounds. We're not giant men. We're not tiny, but we're not 6'6". It's about truly helping people's careers, seeing someone that is deflated, seeing a sad, tired culture, and being able to rebuild that culture and then have an outcome. And that's the other thing, a liquidity event. Because when I do these turnarounds, there is a board alignment. I've spoken with the board. It's usually a technical founder. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm not a founder mentality like you are. I like the operating with someone like you. Yeah. And I love that win. It's hard to get wins in our world. You win a deal, then you got to do the next deal. You win a quarter, what's the next quarter? Yeah. You win the year, what's the next thing? So for this, where I can take a 4-year play and do a complete turnaround and take all those metrics that we talked about earlier and flip them the other way and have an outcome, I feel like I've actually accomplished something. That's it.
Winning the game, come from behind. That's really, it. At the end of the day. That's it. And you create liquidity not just for you, but for the investors and your team.
Exactly right.
That probably at some point, for those who you keep in the journey with you, some of them you probably won't.
Right.
But the ones you do and they go on with you, everybody loves liquidity. Yeah. For those who thought it was lost and then restored, maybe even twice as sweet, right?
Exactly. That's right. And cool. And for the people who have grinded at a company and stuck it out and have gone through 10 leaders and so many mistakes, the stories. Yeah. I've had 14 bosses and they all come in with the same shit, or we're going to do things differently, or, or we're not going to do things differently, or whatever. I just love that opportunity to affect change. I love it. I've always loved it. That's
great. Okay.
It.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Earlier, we talked about some of the things that we like to hire for. If you're going through a hyper-growth build or you're going through a turnaround, do those attributes change?
Let's see if we agree.
Okay.
All right. we both have said intelligence is important, okay, which I think it is. But I think people can outwork intelligence. So I've seen plenty of people that are too, they say they're too smart for their own good. So I don't over-index on intelligence. I think it's very important, okay? But I think the willingness to learn and the willingness to work
coachable,
hard.
teachable.
Yeah. So that's number one for me, okay?
I would agree.
Intelligence is important because there's just so much stuff that we have to learn. Things are constantly changing so much, right? Okay. Yeah. So there's that. And we have to assimilate so much information so fast and regurgitate it, in a way that is relatable to the different personas we deal with.
I love hiring for intelligence, but it's a balance.
Mm-hmm.
We do sell technical products to technical buyers, imperative for the business. So there's high stakes involved. So you have to have a level of intellect where people can, intellect and willingness to learn, like coachability, where you can teach them the product, teach them the process, give them feedback, see them alter and take that feedback and adjust accordingly. They have to have those things. They're table stakes. On the other hand, I also have seen some of the most technically oriented, high IQ reps fail.
We agree.
They end up so skewed on one side that they have a hard time creating personal connection. And to your point, very early in today's conversation about your first sales boss, you said people buy from people they like. If this is going to be a human-led process, you have to still be human in the process.
So I think we agree there, okay?
Right?
I think the other thing that
you have to be authentic is what I'm saying.
Authentic matters.
And if you're super high IQ and you can't connect with people, you maybe should be a sales engineer.
Or just an engineer.
Honestly,
I don't think it matters where in any organization you sit. It doesn't have to be go-to-market, but let's, for our purposes, go-to-market. This competitiveness, this hunger to want to be better. It doesn't always have to be monetary. It can be, and one of the things that I always talk about when we do reviews and 360s and we're coaching talent is, everyone has different ways that they like to be rewarded. Some people like recognition. They want to be public speaking, right? Some people want more money. Some people want to have a nice dinner. Some people want to go to President's Club.
Mm-hmm.
There's different things. They want to be promoted. They want to have a platform to talk about their values, whatever that is. Having come up the way I came up, similar to the way you came up, that I'm grateful that, I know what it feels like to lose, to be told that I wasn't good enough, because just playing competitive sports, that's what that is. Being cut from teams, having to come back and work at that, being told that I wasn't fast enough, strong enough, this enough, that enough, whatever the hell it is, at all these different levels, all the way up through my life, being told in the one interview that I had that I didn't get the job before I got my very first job. He's like, well, I just don't think that you understand enough about advertising. It was an advertising job.
Also, by the way, worked out pretty well.
You
didn't get that job, right?
It worked out fine.
All things happen.
By the way, the universe conspires for goodness, and that's the thing. But I guess this is it. Not hunger, because I think hungry makes it seem like you might be poor or you're this or you're that. It's not a feeling of lack of something. It's about a feeling of wanting to be better and always wanting to competitively, whether it's a competition with yourself to be better, a competition with others to be better, but it's that competitive spirit.
So you interview for competitive spirit?
I absolutely do. Absolutely.
You interview for competitive spirit?
I do. I don't know what to think about that, but I do.
Interesting one.
Because with that, to me, Jason, comes resilience. And so a competitive spirit to me, that other side of that same coin to me is resilience. And you have to be resilient in our business. Everyone, to our point we said earlier, the next deal needs to be better. When's the next deal coming? What have you done for me lately? And you're going to fail more than you succeed.
You wake up, you have a lot of highs and lows in this business.
That's what I think.
And you know what? I've always looked at that. I guess it's interesting. I've never called it competitive spirit.
Mm-hmm.
I never have. But it's funny because I'm the first one to put up dashboards and make everybody compete.
Right.
Because I want to unlock their competitive spirit.
Right.
But I never interview for it intentionally.
Okay.
I've always interviewed, and I think this is actually, it's a moment where I'm realizing that misalignment.
Okay.
I think I might add it now.
Okay.
But I've always looked at it as a combination of work ethic.
Yep.
I always say, look, by the time you're sitting in front of me, I can teach you product, I can teach you process, I can coach you on a lot of things. I cannot teach you work ethic.
Correct.
You learned it, or like it's instilled in you, or it's not.
Nope. I think we're saying the same thing.
That's work ethic.
I think we're saying the same thing.
2, mental toughness. And I think it comes probably those 2 things combined probably end up being summed up through competitiveness.
Yeah.
In one way or another.
I think we're saying the same thing because you know and I know. I mean, look, you've done very well. I'm very grateful for both of our careers and all of that. I definitely, and anyone that doesn't agree with this, I think they're full of shit. I've learned much more from my failures than I have from my success. I mean, I learned from success for sure.
It is tough though, like, the younger version of yourself, you're a first time leader. You don't want to let down whoever your boss is by putting a joker in front of them and backing them. It's your personal reputation. Now you're endorsing this candidate through an interview process.
I've done it. Have you done it?
Oh, dude, I've done. Yeah, I made so many mistakes early on as a first-time leader.
Me too.
And I look back at that now, and it's laughable to me. Some of those mistakes. I'm like, how did I not see that?
So what this gets to?
But it's like everything. You get enough reps, and it's pattern recognition. So let's try to shorten the pattern recognition for some young leader that hopefully is watching us. How would you interview for what you call competitive spirit?
I'm going to answer this 2 ways. I'm going to answer that question, and then I'm going to tell somebody that if we were younger, what I would tell myself. Okay, just about this whole thing, about the whole trend, and we'll call it a day. Okay,
Perfect.
All right. So let's see. For me, and I do it differently because everyone's right. Dude, there's no one size fits all. You know this, but the very first pattern recognition that I look for is I want to know I want to know their background. And so a lot of my interviews, first of all, I do research.
But there's a lot of HR laws now that didn't used to exist.
I agree.
How do you tread lightly
so
and thread that
very
needle?
Colloquially? And look, there is nothing wrong, in my opinion, with asking personal questions.
Yep.
You just need to do it in a way that is ethical, legal, for sure, but ethical, and do it from a place, an intent that makes sense.
Positive intent.
Right?
Positive intent. Yep.
So for me, I want to get to know the person. So what people say about me, and you I don't know if you've ever, well, you've definitely been with people that have worked for me. Yeah. My interviews aren't interviews; they're discussions. Okay. And again, younger me, talking to younger me or someone that's new, those interviews where they're like, tell me about the time you sold a hard deal. I find those loathsome. That's me. Now, this is an old man talking. Okay. All right. I think it is very important to understand how someone thinks about a deal, how you structure a deal. That's different. Okay.
Yeah.
But I lean early into upbringing. What are they interested in? Are they interesting? I lean into questions that lean towards their empathy and their competitive spirit. Like, what was your favorite subject in university or high school? Okay. And did those change? And so let's say someone says, I'll just do it because my wife's a musical theater major, which is interesting. Okay. Because she was an amazing salesperson. Huh? But she's an introvert. We've done all the Myers-Briggs crap, all of us, whatever these things. She's a total INTJ or something, and she's got all the she's very different than me. Okay. However, she was a musical theater major. Okay. And she was also top of her business class, but put that aside. She got rejected all the time. She didn't get the main role. She wasn't a good enough singer to go to Broadway, but she's good. She could dance, but she was a great actor, and so me learning that about someone, let's say I was interviewing someone like that, again, that is a competitive spirit that you have to learn to be resilient, to use your words.
Mental toughness.
Development. And again, it can be chess. It can be a spelling bee. It can be musical theater. It doesn't have to be this, I played lacrosse for 72, it doesn't matter. So that's for me. It can be the way that they attack making cookies. Honest to God. Like, no, dude, I got this cookie recipe, but it wasn't right. And it took me 30 times and I make the best damn
I can honestly
cookie.
say I've never interviewed anyone on how they make cookies.
I have. I can honestly tell you that I have. Okay. And so for me, that's it. So going back to younger me,
Yeah.
I think, or you, for me, where I made a couple mistakes that I would tell anybody that cares. I think I tried to play a character of what I thought a leader should be.
That's a great way to summarize it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. That whole journey of either, not knowing myself well enough or just pretending to be what I thought or I read about it in the books or what I saw, right? I think I would tell myself if I could be more authentic, younger.
Mm-hmm.
I was always myself. I know you were too. But I think I played especially that leadership. Forget the rep bit, because as reps, I think we can play a little more being who we are.
Yeah, that's always that fake it till you make it thing.
Yeah, exactly.
You try to live up to that image of what you have.
But what's the image, right?
Which is what you're trying to fake into.
Right.
You look back afterward and you're like, man, we didn't have to overcomplicate it.
I didn't have to.
We didn't have to overcomplicate it.
I overcomplicated it.
Yeah.
I overmanaged.
Yeah.
I didn't manage the more important things that we just talked about for the last hour.
Yeah.
I didn't spend the time on the enablement and the systems and the transparency that I could see these living. If I had known better to see the leading indicators, to put the systems and processes in place that I could distill that information without having to try to be like, this is how you do it. So much, I think I would have been a much better leader faster. I grew up in a world with some pretty hard-ass leaders. And, let's just take that out of the equation. Like the chefs that come up in the world, you watch the shows like The Bear, and all that stuff. Just because we come from a similar background, there was some people that were arguably pretty mean.
Yeah. Let's stay there for a second, actually.
Yeah.
I think we learned from a lot of those same people.
Mm-hmm.
They're highly intelligent.
Yes.
Masters of their craft.
Yes.
And I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to learn from them early in my career.
Me too.
They did reshape the way that I approached sales leadership, talent development, recruiting, even managing a business as I started in the executive ranks and leading with quantifiable and qualitative data, like really thinking about data-oriented observations and decisions. And still balance that against like the art of the sell, which is great. Like I learned so much from that crew. Sometimes you learn by example, and sometimes you learn what you don't want to do by example. And I think if you take all the goodness of it, all the things we were talking about, and you marry it together with truly investing and understanding intrinsic will against extrinsic motivators, like what really drives people. That's kind of what you were describing earlier. Learning what people care about, what drives them, what makes them tick, how they compete, how they operate. Do they have mental toughness? Do they have high character? Do they have work ethic? These things. You get into really, that's not just for the interview. That carries through. Once you learn it, then you can apply it while you're leading them to make them the best version of themselves, to unlock productivity levels that's in learning, professional learning in a way that maybe other people haven't invested in them. And it's fulfilling, man. If you can see them, once you learn what makes them tick and what their life goals are, if you see them go through the journey and fulfill those life goals, I feel like that brings energy back to me to keep going.
You know what? I still have a group text with BDRs that started as BDRs with me that have gone through this journey, their first house, their first engagement with a partner, their first promotion. They text me to this day, and I have CEOs that have worked for me, CROs that have worked for me, and they will text me, you know what? I thought about you today because you gave me that. And you know what? You're right. It comes back and it builds you up in a way that makes you like, wow, I actually did something that had purpose.
By the contrast of that, if you constantly lead with fear and depend exclusively on extrinsic motivation, which is like, the stick rather than the carrot, you will get reaction out of people.
Yep.
That reaction typically is out of fear of loss.
Yep.
That will only work for so long. People will not run through walls for you the same way they will if you understand what intrinsically motivates them and you show them a path to get there and commit to helping them bridge the gap. And I think, it's that balance of the lessons we learned early in our career, but balancing it with that, like, leading with intent, leading with authenticity, and that earns you the right to drive accountability.
I agree.
Because people understand that overall your intent is good, and they're on a journey that will benefit them and their family or their goals in some way that they is meaningful. And I think that provides the framework for this, like, mutually beneficial outcomes shared by everybody in the journey.
Couldn't agree with you
which
more.
gives you the right to drive hard, gives you the opportunity to hold each other accountable. And it goes both ways. Like, I have to be willing to accept accountability up the same way I hold it down if we're going to have an authentic relationship and culture, in the company. And I think all of that is just stuff that I never really thought of early in my career.
I didn't either. I think we're just so heads down trying just to, get to that next step and do what we want to do. And, I think that is perfectly said. And then the last thing that I would tell myself, and this is much smaller, was that I think people get into our profession, specifically our profession, because we're naturally good at it, okay? Right? But I don't think enough younger in their career people, I don't care what age you are, it's about, where you are in your career, practice enough and take it as a profession. So, I mean, what we do is a profession, and there's a craft, and there's studying, and there's repeatability, and all the things that we talk about. I think that we're just naturally good at it. And if I could have told myself, or I tell a lot of younger in their career, whatever they're doing, you need to treat it with respect. It's a profession. Going all the way back to my mom, where I said, why would I do sales? It's a profession. It is not a skill.
On the salary level, you get paid like a doctor.
Yep.
Or better.
Yeah.
When you become executive and a leader, sometimes even reps, if they have a big run at a big company, big hockey stick outcome, you're making money like pro athletes.
Yes.
And if you are in the situation to have that opportunity, you owe it to yourself to treat it with the same discipline and dedication that you would if you were one of those, like, 1% pro athletes on the court.
Exactly right.
Why would you treat it any differently? You think about it like a pro athlete, and it comes down to observation of yourself, right? Like, your point was practice.
Mm-hmm.
Practice your profession.
Mm-hmm.
It's like pro athletes, they take care of their body, like, to your point.
Yep.
They seek coaching in every aspect of their game and life. They willingly hook themselves up to sensors and have hours and hours and hours of tape, and they're obsessing over every little thing. Kobe Bryant was great at this, was well known for this. Some of the greats just do this all the time. And to your point, like, this is your craft, practice your craft, be great at it, seek the feedback, constantly practice. It's great advice, man.
Well, good.
And I don't think I developed that lens until much later in my career either.
Yeah, me neither.
I wish I had thought about it that way.
Me too.
Right.
I just think we were good at it.
Yeah. So I'm glad you brought
But that's
it
the
up.
difference between a Hall of Famer
Yeah.
and somebody that bounced in the league and made the league minimum or whatever, and they're out in 2 years.
But even though you didn't do that, man, you went from the guy that had to go borrow suits to with a broken down car, betting on himself with a commission only job, to leading a multi-billion-dollar, several companies, but taking at least one from hardly any revenue to a multi-billion-dollar valuation and outcome. And so you've had an incredible career. You've had what I know is net wealth creation events that you probably never imagined when you were young, that I know because I've spent time with you care deeply about because of your family. And I'm happy for you for that. We celebrate that. I appreciate you taking the time with me to launch Extreme Operators podcast series. This is episode 1.
All right. Hey.
The very first one.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks. Seriously. That was great.
Yeah. Thank
It's
you.
fun.
And as we like to say at Orso, cocktails are for closers.
Yeah.
This man closed a $100 million deal in his career. I hope you enjoyed the
150,
lessons.
but who's counting?
I hope you enjoyed life and professional lessons from our extreme operator today. It's Matt Handler.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers, everybody.